Coming out this Saturday on Beyond the Vibe, I'm joined by a man at the very forefront of rock music, Buchanan of RIVAL Sons.
To be right in the middle of the largest artistic undertaking of our career and as a band together. Well, to be right in the middle of composing all of those statements and these songs, and then take a break from that, and then go out on the road and travel the world and play songs from 11 years ago. That was a mind fuck. I think that Rapture is really as me at a crossroads, even wondering, like, what am I doing? Do I want to make rock and roll music anymore? Do I want to do this? Is this an identity that is even, do I want to wear this? Do I want to keep doing this? You know?
Rapture, sing it loud, I do believe I'm becoming what I'm meant to be.
You would not believe that RIVAL Sons is actually the most popular answer on this question. So I'm here with Jay Buchanan of RIVAL Sons. Thank you very much for joining me, Jay. Of course, you know, you've got this genuinely fantastic record, DARKFIGHTER, coming out on June the 2nd, you know, which we'll absolutely be getting into. But first, I like to kind of take a look at the early years, the origins of a musician, as of course, you know, it shapes who they're going to go on to be as an artist. So what first got you into wanting to become a musician?
That's a question I've been asked many, many times. And here's what's crazy about it. Every time, if I think about it for long enough, it's always just a little bit different. I really don't think there was ever any hope of me doing anything else with my life. I think that as long as I can remember, music's been there, and I just knew, I don't know, music seemed like free magic, or it seemed like it's available to everyone. And it always perplexed me, like, why more people don't tether their life to something so wonderful or powerful. I think from a young age, like when I would look at, you know, my parents having jobs, or I was equated any job that wasn't music, it just sounded like jail.
Yeah.
And I knew that whatever it is, like, of course you can have a day job, you know, but you have to play music. You have to play music at night. You need to write music. You need to perform. You need to do these things, because I always knew, like, with whatever job I had, that was just a job that I had. I was trading my time to earn an income to pay some bills. But I was always very much aware that that's a job I was doing, and that was temporary, but I was a musician. I was a songwriter, you know, and that was my identity as a person. So I think that being moved at a very, very young age, just feeling music, you know, the way it does move you, it moves you in a way that nothing else does, in a completely different way than anything else does. Music will make you cry in a very good way, you know, and it will give you the elation. I don't know.
No,
that probably sounds like a lot of other people's answers, but just music is, the idea of not doing it just seemed like a complete, it seemed like misery. Like whatever that alternative was, just seemed like the worst thing that could happen to you. So
No, I get that. I mean, you spoke about there, the music makes you feel. Was there a song or an artist that kind of that
I think all
first one out the
I think
door?
I think all of them. Well, of course, it all began with like my mother's voice or my grandmother's voice,
Hmm.
and music at home. My mom would sing to me sitting on her, when I would be sitting on her lap. She'd sing to me when she was nursing me, and just like a mother does. And like, that was just, it's not as if I have all of those musical memories, but I have memories like those as I was getting older, 2 and 3 years old. And um, whenever music was on and whenever I would hear people singing, it just sounded like, how do you put this? Like when when I would hear music, it sounded like an alternate reality, which it is. But it sounded like some place where people tell the truth. When you would hear these songs, it would sound like whoever was in on that record that you were listening to, or whoever was on the radio, they were singing something that was the true thing. And whereas, like when people talk, we use language, but music, I guess, through the use of melody or just the vulnerabilities of the human voice, it just sounded more honest. It sounded more honest than other things did to me. And it's, not that I think that even really early on that children have a bullshit detector, much more than we would give them credit for. But I think that they recognize something that involves harmony, or that has a tranquility or a peaceful nature to it, something that doesn't.
Hmm.
And I think that music just felt like that. I'm not saying all music, because when I would listen to certain types of music, like, no, I don't like that music at all. I don't like the way that makes me feel. But it just came down to the dislikes and likes for the most part.
I mean, a few gigs now and comments. I always hear as people are leaving, people saying, what a voice, what an amazing voice that you have. Is there, did you just wake up and find that you had this, or is this like something that you've really kind of worked at over the years?
Oh God, I could always sing, and I've always sung ever since I could talk, ever since I can remember. I sang, but no, I'm a long way from where I started. That's for sure. Even within this band, because I've been making records since I was a teenager, and long before this band ever got together. But even within this band, my voice has developed past what I thought it would. Just, and I think the reason for that would be the abuse that I put it through. Rival Sons is a very large, or it's a very loud band. It's a very, very loud band, and it's loud on stage, and there is a lot of action going on. And that's the opposite of any type of music I had ever made before. It's really the opposite of any type of songwriting that I had ever been interested in, because Rival Sons it's so many guitar solos, so many drum fills, so much distortion, so much fuzz, so much shouting, so much screaming. But a byproduct of going through all of that, so many days when I can barely talk out on tour. And I think a byproduct of all of that abuse and all of that exercise is having a greater, just a greater understanding of what my voice is capable of and what I could do. And not only that, but what it means to me and how I'm able to connect everything that I am and funnel it through this keyhole of a throat. And but I think that it's the maturity that the maturity that you get from a hard-lived voice is certainly different from what you start off with.
Your previous release, Feral Roots, came out back in 2019. It felt like a real big step up for you guys. I mean, obviously it was Grammy nominated. Did you spoke a bit about there, you've kind of had that maturity. Did you feel like when you were recording that, that you were onto something that was, quite special?
Yeah. I think that we felt good about that record because we'd taken our time more so than we had on any previous records. And I think that the collection of songs that make that record, I think the overall statement, I think that we felt really good about it because we knew that we were sitting on at least half of the record. We knew that those were good songs, well-written songs that were written from a place that I think we had yet to go artistically. A song like the title track of Feral Roots, or a song like Miss Me. We didn't have any songs in our catalog that sounded remotely like either of those. And then you have a song like Shooting Stars. It's a message-driven song. I think that we knew that however well the record does or doesn't do, that we knew that we had statements within those songs. We knew that we had statements that were going to edify us artistically throughout our career. And that's a good feeling.
I saw you guys last year on the Pressure and Time anniversary tour. I imagine that would have been around that kind of time when you were recording Darkfighter. Going back and, performing those songs that you'd written, a number of years ago, did you feel that you were that you changed your approach compared to now? I feel for Darkfighter, there's tonally you're kind of venturing into some new territory that is, a bit darker.
Oh, yes. I can speak to that for sure, Brian. When we had intended to do an anniversary tour for Pressure and Time, we had intended to do that, to have a 10-year anniversary, but because of the pandemic and COVID and everything, we missed that year. So as soon as we could, we did a US run, and then as soon as we could, we brought it over to the UK and parts of Europe. Now, you can't look back and you can't scorn any part that you've played in your own storyline, right? And but to be right in the middle of the largest artistic undertaking of our career and as a band together, well, to be right in the middle of composing all of those statements and these songs, and then take a break from that, and then go out on the road and travel the world and play songs from 11 years ago. That was a mind fuck, because it's like going and putting on your clothing from high school or something like that, Like, yeah, you can. And it's not, you know, Pressure in Time is a great record, but that's not what this is about. It's that for me, I was a different person when I was writing those songs. There was a different head on my shoulders altogether. And so going back and reliving these statements and repeating these mantras from that time in my life, while at the same time, I know I'm sitting on all of these other statements for the Darkfighter record. That's my actual identity, but I'm not at that time, like, I'm not permitted to wear that identity yet because the album hasn't been released. So that's a weird one, right?
Mm.
So it was a good experience all in all. You know, we certainly have a privilege that we have a catalog that we can fall back on. And I think the fan base, you know, I think the people that came out to the shows enjoyed themselves. But I don't think I'll be in a hurry to walk down memory lane so quickly in the future.
No, I get that. I mean, I've even myself, like, you get comments, they're like, oh, this is amazing, or this is this, but I don't know, like, you feel like you live in the now, you know, like, you want to be where you are today rather than look back. I don't know about you, but I like to look at where I am now rather than
certainly
10 years ago or whatever.
Absolutely.
One of my favorite songs off the new record is Rapture. You know, I feel it has that kind of unusual chord progression in there, and you know, I think it really showcases, you know, where you've come as a vocalist. There's a kind of full range in there. Could you talk a bit about that song and, you know, kind of the meaning behind it, how it came about?
Yes, of course. I think that throughout the process of making this record, I mean, Ryan, we went through a lot. The whole world went through, you know, there was a global pandemic happening. And there was a lot here in the States. I'm aware that the rest of you, you know, out in the UK and everyone else around the world, well, they got to see a lot of our dirty laundry here. And throughout the pandemic, during the election year, the insurrection year, the Black Lives Matter year, the social, you know, we were having a lot of growing pains, you know, because you've got a virus it's killing people. And you have the politicalization of that immediately. You have something as simple as a mask to wear if you're going to be around other people. Oh no, that gets politicized very quickly. Never mind that they've been proven to work great. The medical community's been using them for years to great effect. But you get people not wanting to be controlled, and so you have the politicalization of that. Then you have a vaccine. Oh, whoa! The politicalization of a vaccine. And then you have the isolation, stay indoors. Then you have the politicalization of that. Then you have you know, in the United States, you have the brutal murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis at the hands of a police officer on camera. And then you actually have people politicizing that, and that is political, you know, that is a social issue. But from that, we have the Black Lives Matter movement, a long overdue movement, you know. But then you get the politicalization of that, an opposing side saying, Oh, there is no racial injustice in the United States. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? There is no racial bias for our armed forces. Are you kidding me? I mean, in our police community. Fucking kidding me. And then you have an election, you know. You have an election and it's just the worst. Things were at a fever pitch. And this is coming right off the heels of, the Me Too movement. But as we were going into that, but it's like it didn't seem like the Me Too movement, like that, it just ended up in the rearview mirror. And it was like, is that gaining steam? Like, we need people to be aware of this, of the gender bias, and we need people to be aware of this. Are we going to get some traction? And next thing you know, it's way back there because there's all of these other things. So anyways, I'm getting to Rapture. I think that Rapture came at a point when I wasn't exactly sure where I was coming from. I think that the disorientation of all of these factors, and amidst all of this, the band can't tour. Amidst all this, we can't earn an income for our families. Amidst all of this, turmoil. And I was expecting a child at that time, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to move my family back to California. I think that Rapture is really as me at a crossroads, even wondering, like, what am I doing? Do I want to make rock and roll music anymore? Do I want to do this? Is this an identity that is even, do I want to wear this? Do I want to keep doing this? And really feeling that need, feeling the need to express myself in a different way and to write in a way that would suit this personal transformation that I was going through. And so those lyrics are certainly indicative of that. Scott had sent me that verse guitar line and the basic chords for what would be the main riff. And so I took that and I sat with it for a little bit. And then I wrote that chorus and the pre-chorus to it. And I think that song brought me a lot of comfort because I was writing precisely in the way that I wanted to. And by that, I mean, it's a long form melody that doesn't repeat itself. So if you start at the top of the verse and you go all the way to where the chorus starts, there's no note that is repeated. There's no phrase that is repeated melodically. And I knew that with this record, I wanted to write that way. So there are many songs on this record that are written in that same way. I think Dark Side, Horse's Breath, even Guillotine, for the most part, and then Bird in the Hand, certainly that's a long form melody that doesn't repeat. And I knew that I wanted to tell melodic stories that were more complex for me and more edifying, more gratifying artistically.
I mean, it feels like more of a complex album, sonically and lyrically. I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit there. The final track, Dark Side. I mean, the impression I got when listening to it, it feels like a personal song to you. Looking at these kind of more, darker themes. Is there a story behind that song in particular?
Yes, of course. Dark Side. Well, that's a rough one, right? I was going through something I was going through something, like my best friend, since I was young, you know, he was my closest friend. Very fantastic person. His name was also Ryan. A very fantastic person, very trustworthy, great father, husband, and just a great family man. He was like the type of friend that I would talk to just about every day or every other day. Well, it turned out that he had an injury some years back, and it turns out that as a result of that injury, he had been given a prescription for painkillers and things. Well, it turns out that he had been hiding a very severe painkiller addiction as a result of all of that. And that came out of nowhere. And he had already begun, spiraling out of control. Estranged, and very soon after that, estranged from his wife. And after that, estranged from his children, his family. And then there came the part where, must have been living out of his car or something like that. And this is like, it was very difficult because then I couldn't get a hold of him. And when you love an addict, and when they get hooked, like the person that you love, they're not at the wheel anymore. They're not in the driver's seat. They are in the boot of the car. They're in the trunk, tied up. Even though they're still alive and they're still technically in the car, they're not driving at all. So Dark Side was written at a very difficult time for me because when you love an addict, you begin and you go through the process of mourning someone who is still alive. And that is a very strange feeling to have. Mourning someone who's still with you. And I think that Dark Side was written at a time when, for the first time in our lives, I couldn't get a hold of him and he wasn't returning my calls. And for anybody who loves, again, anyone who loves, has a family member or a friend like that, or that is an addict, when it goes there, it starts getting really scary because you never know when you're going to get that call, And, but that song was written at a time when I couldn't get a hold of him. After, in between his first and second stint in rehab. So yeah, those lyrics in Dark Side, him, that addiction like that is a very private hell. It's a very private horror. It's a very secretive existence that way. And so that's where the lyrics come from. It says, something's driving you out of your mind. And pretty soon you're going to get to where you're going. Something's got you talking in your sleep. Pretty soon you're going to give yourself away. Something's put a tremble in your hand. Are you able to protect the ones you love? Something's keeping you awake at night and losing focus when you need to count your flock. It's all of those things that indicate what the addict is going through. This private hell. That they only they understand the pangs of that addiction, the pangs of withdrawal, and the being dope sick and needing the fix, or feeling guilty when they are high, or feeling numb because they're so disassociated with their former life, their family. I think the chorus for that song says it. Like, you let them off the hook. because they're not the same person anymore. So every time when you talk to them, they say they're sorry or whatever. Like, it's okay, you know. But those lyrics, there are no promises to keep now that you've gone to the dark side. You know, all is forgiven, and you're not trusted anymore, and so you don't have the burden of letting anyone down. You know, you don't have the burden. You're forgiven every time you hurt people that you love. It's all right. You're just trying to get through it. And I think that song in particular, I would have never closed out an album with a song that heavy, because I'm an eternal optimist and I like to leave people feeling good for the most part. But since we have the next installment of the collection, Lightbringer, that's going to be coming in October. Since we have that coming, and I know that that's going to tell the rest of the story, it works as kind of leaving you with that statement, you know, where at the end of the song, that low drone, that sub, that low note, well, that's the sound of the dark side. That's the sound of the darkness prevailing, and you having to just deal with it. Because when you endure something like that, you can't make sense of it, you know, and you're faced with the fact that there's no such thing as fair, or there's no such thing as justice, you know, in that, to that degree, that life happens and things happen the way that they do. And I think it's in the way that we deal with them and process them. But Dark Side, closing out that record, is I realize that it's a big statement.
It felt like a big statement. It felt like a powerful statement. Of course, you touched on Lightbringer there, which is be coming out later on in the year. When you were doing this, I mean, this is the first time you're doing obviously 2 albums in a year. Was this an intentional thing from the get-go that you were going to do 2, or did it kind of just become that naturally?
It became that naturally. I think when we first set out recording in 2020, our only expectation was to just make the best songs that we could. And that was really the only objective starting out. And I think that as soon as the collection began to take shape, we knew that we were writing from a different place. You know, a song like Dark Side, that was like the first or second song that we tracked for the entire collection. So we started off at a creative high point, like, whoa, this is going to be a different record. We're going to go very, very deep with this collection. Well, we had just set out to make the best songs that we were capable of. And there was so much going on in the world. There was so much of that, so many lines being drawn all over the place. And so many issues and so many divisive topics popping up over and over. It presents like a cultural mitosis, maybe. And there was always something more to write about. There was always more coming up. There was always more to purge. Just when you think that you're all finished and you can get up off of your knees in front of the toilet and go wash up, more needs to come out. More needs to be exercised. And there's something deep within you that you need to write about, something you need to discuss, something that you need to reveal to yourself. You know, I think that there was a lot of that. So by the end, we had finished our last song. It really was this cannot be, a 65, 67-minute record. I don't think that's what we want to do. That's too much. And the nature of this material is too dense. And so we looked at it, and it was really about partitioning the songs into two categories and framing things as two parts of a story. And so we did it that way. But we didn't set out with any master plan, or grand vision of an opus. It just happened that way.
A question I always like to finish on, that I ask every guest. It's a bit of a hypothetical one. If you could tour with one band from the past and one band from the present, who would they be? I mean, obviously you've toured with a few iconic bands over the years, Black Sabbath, Aerosmith, but are there any in there that you'd still like to?
Goodness, we've toured with everyone. I mean, we've toured with everyone. I think, let's see. I think there used to be a band called Morphine in the 90s. They were out of Boston and Cambridge, that area. Fantastic trio. I would have liked to have toured with them. Just because the music was so good. Either them or, goodness, any great band. But I think I would like to tour with Rival Sons.
the funny
Rival Sons 2012.
The funny thing with that, the crazy thing with that is that you would not believe that Rival Sons is actually the most popular answer on this question. They even you have now said Rival Sons.
Yeah. I think it would be Rival Sons for both answers. Because and the reason for that, Ryan, is that the band changes with every album. There's some, we switch. I don't know how much personally we switch identities. It's not as much that. It's just the music. Each collection, every album is very different from its predecessors.
Yeah. It feels like there's an evolution. I mean, I've kind of grown up with you guys, really. And it's like, you guys have kind of grown as I've grown. There's this real evolution there, which I don't see with a lot of bands nowadays.
Well, I think there are a few bands that continue to grow. I think, I look at some of my favorites when it comes to rock or even otherwise. I feel like Queens of the Stone Age are still, Josh is still writing great music, and he's still very much on his path, and the band, that's just one of the best bands. They're just incredible, probably pound for pound. I think that those are the ones, that's the band that you can't get in the ring with. Those guys are killers, and I look at them and I look at King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. King Gizzard's a great band that continues to grow and push their own boundaries. Unknown Mortal Orchestra is a band that pushes their boundaries. And I think that there are, most of the bands that I don't hear growing are the ones that kind of just got into one identity, and and they're really good at it, but they're just not interested. They want their rock this certain way, and so that's the way they do it, and that's okay, right? Because if that's the way, every artist or every band is, I'd like to think that everyone is giving their version of the truth. And they must be cool with replicating themselves like that. And they must be cool with it, so it's all good. Their fan base likes what they're doing. So good for them, you know? I think that's great. I just know that for us, I can't, you know, repeating myself artistically it just goes against the grain. And I'm thankful to be with, I'm thankful that the other guys in the band and Rival Sons feel the same way. You know, switching it up and forcing ourselves to look at it from a different angle, or just think that artistically, ideally, it's an artist's responsibility to try to push their boundaries, you know, and extend their boundaries a little bit. We're supposed to do that, but, you know, there are ones that really do it, you know, that really that have pushed the envelope. You know, like when Jack White was getting his whole thing going with the White Stripes, and subsequently it's like, you know, yeah, that's what you want to do. And then you got Black Keys that are like putting old blues music in a pop production and vernacular. Like, hell yeah, that's great. You know, or Queens in the Stone Age. Like, that's, you know, that's the kind of music I like.
No, I mean, I totally get that. I mean, I always find it's much more interesting when you don't quite know what they're going to do for that next release. I mean, you mentioned Jack White there. I've always kind of been that guy with Jack White, because it's per release, he's trying to do something a bit different, you know, a bit new. And, you know, I see that with you guys as well.
Yeah, we try. And, you know, whoever likes it or gets it, or whoever doesn't, okay. You know, we've got to do it for us. It's you know, we have to make it for us, because it's our collection at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, it's been very cool speaking with you, man. And of course, for those that want to check out Darkfighter, that comes out June the 2nd, and later on in the year there's obviously Lightbringer as well. The link in the description will be there for that, for pre-order. And you guys are coming back to the UK, aren't you, on tour in October?
That's right, October. I think our first, wait a minute, is our first show in London?
It is. It's in London.
Oh shit. That's right. Our first show is in London for that tour, the Lightbringer tour. I think at the Roundhouse, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll be at the Roundhouse on Friday. And this is great too. It's not just Friday the 13th. It's Friday the 13th in October.
That's what I read this and I thought, is that right? Like it seems.
That's great. A very ominous record on an ominous date. So that should be a great time.
Yes, obviously for those that want to check that out and that are feeling daring, go and get your tickets for that. It's been really cool speaking with you, Jay, and I really appreciate your time. And
of course, Brian. Yeah, thanks, man. Great interview, and we'll catch you when we come. What town are you in?
I am just near Nottingham, so obviously we have that Year 8 connection thing going on there. But yeah, I saw you Rock City last time, so
yeah, Rock City.
Yeah. It's
a lot of fun there. A lot of fun there. Nottingham's a great town to play.
Always packed.
Yeah.
Struggle getting in.
Right. Yeah. Oh, we're gonna have some fun. Well, great, man. Make yourself known when we come through.
Yeah, sure, man. Yeah, it's been really cool speaking with you, man.